Good evening and salutations, my Days of Our Lives fans. So, let's talk about Claire for a minute. So, the scene with Claire and her mother. I'm trying to look at this from two different points. I can look at this from a point, and I do, of, listen, this guy lied to her, she's torn, she's confused, she wants to believe in this guy, but, the evidence is stacked against her, and she's blaming herself. She's blaming herself for falling for a guy that pretty much lied to her. And I can sit there and see it that way. And then I can sit there and see it as a scene that just dragged on way too long. Listen, after a while, I'm not going to lie, I kind of got a little annoyed. Because there's one point where she kind of calls herself out for being desperate, for falling for another guy, for, not seeing who this guy really is. I'm like, okay, cool. The mother's like, no, you're not desperate, you just fell in love with him, that's okay, it happens. But then she starts trying to make excuses for him, and Smith is saying, well, Ava isn't the most reliable person, she's a bad person, we should believe in Charlie because he's a sweet person, and it just got annoying. It just got really annoying. The whole scene, I want to give her, I want to sit there and be like, listen, it sucks, it happens, and listen, you're not the first person it's probably happened to, and it sucks. I feel bad for her, on one sense. I do. On the other sense, it just kind of dragged too long, and she just started getting all kind of melodramatic, and it just was like, alright, I'm kind of, over it, I was just over the whole scene. There's really no other way to sit there and describe it. Sit there and call yourself out for being desperate, and then you continue to sit there and kind of flip-flop back and forth. It just, I was just over that whole scene. Now, let's talk about Xander and Philip. So, the one thing that I'm still kind of curious about is the fact that Xander pretty much was like, hey, I know that you're loaning money, for the mob through Titan. And I was just like, why would you reveal your plan to him? I mean, that you caught on to him. I really didn't understand that. But pretty much he's like, yeah, I know what you're doing. I know that, Ava's your boss, and, you're loaning money to the mob, and he shows him the proof, and he's like, Sarah was in on it, and, we got one over on you. So now we're going to sit there and tell Victor, and, you're going to be out on the street, Also, that company that you were, that shell company that you were, funneling the money through, yeah, it's gone. I took care of it. It's disappeared. And, Philip was like, you pretty much put a target on my back, And at one point he's like, in the beginning, well, sort of, he was like, you had all this information, why didn't you tell Victor earlier? Why are you just doing this now? And, Xander's all like, oh, well, I know Victor has a bad heart, and, he's not in good health, so, I kind of want to just kind of ease him into it. Philip is like, well, how's he going to feel when I'm dead? And he walks off, and Xander just smiles. And I'm like, listen, I get you don't like him. First of all, it felt kind of weird, but I was like, I feel bad for Philip. And it sounds weird saying it because the first time that I've seen this character, I was like, wow, this guy is, this guy's a straight up man-child. And granted, he's still a man-child, but well, he's not Chad, so he's not that bad. When he was with Chloe and stuff like that, you do kind of see a different side of him. And I'm just not there thinking still, that's your cousin. One, why are you smiling? And two, I don't even know what to say to that. I'm just like, I know people, are Xander fans and stuff like that, and I get that, I like the accent. I always like a good British accent or a good UK accent. I like the accent, so I like the character. Not just because of his accent, just because of his personality. But I'm like, bro, you are, like, I know you're supposed to be your rival and everything, but you're taking this way too far. I'm lost for words. I'm befuddled. It's the best way I could sit there and describe that. Now, he does eventually go over to Brady's place. And here's something that I really didn't understand from the both of them, to some extent. So Brady says something to Chloe about, getting into more trouble. And he talks about the New Year's Eve kiss, and, how he's, had to sit there and defend himself, and she was upset. And, he was just like, oh, it just was an innocent kiss. And I'm like, what? Hell, even she at one point was like, I understand where she's coming from. I hope she's not going to be too upset over just an innocent kiss between friends. I'm like, what? What friends do you know kiss each other and it's just innocent? I mean, on the lips, not even on the cheek. It was on the lips. And what I don't understand from both of them is that, like, do you kiss... I mean, Chloe, do you kiss your female friends on the lips? Because, I mean, I'm totally cool about that. I would enjoy that. But, like, how do you just sit there and pass that off? I just... And even Brady, but, Brady is just the type of person I feel like... I mean, hell, he pretty much wouldn't let Kristen take responsibility for her own actions, so why the hell would he bother to sit there and take responsibility for his own actions? Just a friendly kiss. Would you kiss another guy like that? I just... So they talk about that. They go through memory lane about, how he screwed up as a husband, which I can believe. It's so hard not to have such a low opinion of him when the first time I actually met this character, he was pretty much trying to take down Titan. Like, just the stupidest plan that he could sit there and possibly pull off. And I'm just like, bro, you already started off with me on a bad foot. And, your character has just not improved. So, at some point, Chloe brings up a good question. Somewhat of a good question. And I kind of got a question of my own. Chloe's like, what are you going to do for 5 years? Like, she's gone. Like, what are you going to do? And, Brady's like, oh, I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to be by her side. I'm going to be supportive. And I'm just like, and I know this is kind of a crude question, but, since y'all aren't really married, I don't think you're married, like, is she allowed to have conjugal visits? Because, I don't really, like, know what you're going to do for 5 years without, Well, you know what? I'm not going to have this conversation get any more crude than it needs to be, but, I mean, just even on an emotional level, between working, taking care of his daughter, and seeing her once a week, it's like, what is he actually going to do? But, I guess we'll just wait and find that out. And what I think is that he's going to wind up hooking up with Chloe. Because from what I heard from one subscriber is that, well, he's not exactly the most faithful person on the planet. So, I guess we'll wait and see. Also, my whole other thing is that Chloe was like, I want to thank you for, helping Philip out. And Brady was like, well, I'm doing this for you, not for Philip. I'm like, isn't that, like, again, your family member. These people will kill him, and you're just like, oh, I'm only doing this for her. I don't even know what to say about that. What else? So, Rafe pretty much does another one, interrogates Charlie, and he trips him up by getting him to admit that Ava is his mother. And they start talking more. And at some point, Rafe is like, well, how are you going to sit and explain... I don't know if this is before or after, but he asked a question. He was like, well, how are you going to sit and explain this woman just being tied up at your place. And Charlie thinks for a good minute. He thinks. And he sits down, takes off his glasses. I'm like, okay, cool. This is going to be good, right? I mean, this guy was thinking for like a good couple of minutes, couple of seconds, right? I mean, I can't wait to hear this one. What do you got? And he's like, so she came over my place and she was talking about knives and hurting herself, and I want to restrain her. And so that's what I did. And, you know. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. Charlie, who seems like a smart person, which I'm really starting to question that the more I actually watch this character. So your excuse was that this woman just came over your place and was talking about knives and hurting herself, so you felt you needed to restrain her, and you didn't bother to call the cops or a doctor or anything that just made any sense. That's literally the best that you came up with. I don't even know what to say to that. I was just like, actually rewind that, because I was like, let me just make sure I heard what I thought I heard. And yeah. And at some point, Nicole comes in. You know, Nicole trying to be all, like, badass and diva-like. So she starts threatening, and I get it to some extent. That is her niece. She's going to sit there and want justice for Allie. I'm all for that. So she comes in and she's like, oh, well, you know, you're going to pay for this and you're going to go to jail for a long time, and if you don't, I'm going to get you, and yada, yada, yada. At some point, I don't exactly remember what happened. I think Charlie got released on bail. So he leaves, and Nicole was all like, oh, he found out after. So Nicole, you know, was all like, oh, well, you know, you better sit there and get him to talk, you know, and yada, yada. Just start making all these lists of demands, and I'm just like, you know, I don't know. Something about that just irked me. Not the fact that she wants to get justice for Allie. I'm all for that. I just think maybe it was just her tone, like her bossy attitude. Like, was she... And I haven't been watching the show that long, so was she always like that? Like, was she just, like, this version? Because I'm not gonna lie, this version is just kind of annoying. Like, even when she was like, oh, you know, you're a punk ass, and I was like, stop. Just, like, Nicole, just stop. I get it, you're angry, but you're not as badass as you like to sit there and think you are, but okay, sure. But yeah, that's, at some point, Ray finds out that, you know, he's out on bail. Now, let's kind of rewind this a little bit back. So, Tripp decides to go over Charlie's apartment and, get some DNA evidence, you know, toothbrush and whatever else. Puts it in the bag, and then he hits the door. So he takes a baseball bat, and he pretty much just wails on Steve. And Steve was like, you know, I came here for this exact reason. What are you doing here? You know? And, you know, Tripp was like, you know, I want to get justice. I'm tired of people looking at me a certain way. Long story short, well, Steve agrees to take the DNA evidence to Kayla. Even though he knows that they can't use this in court, and they're going to have to actually get gun evidence. I just kept sitting there looking at this like, I get you want to sit there and get justice for yourself, but you may wind up taking, like, the evidence for Allie. Like, going in, I mean, I don't know exactly what kind of laws, you know, apply to soap operas, because, you know, if you ever watch General Hospital, HIPAA don't mean anything. HIPAA don't mean ish. So, but whatever, he convinces Steve to, you know, run a DNA test. So they go to Kayla, and they do it, and of course Kayla's like, you do realize? Yeah, realize. So they decide to do it. They have a sample of Allie's baby or whatever, so they're gonna run the test and just make sure everything is, you know, hopefully it's a match. Now I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, I wonder what can go wrong with this DNA test. I really hope they don't do that. Because I honestly tell you the truth, I think as fans of this, of this show, I think we can all agree that this whole, you know, going after Trip, blaming him, being a town pariah, enough is enough. All right, I think we need some closure. This just needs to be done, and he needs to be found guilty of, you know, what he did to Allie. And man, I can't wait for the apologies to start rolling on in. Now I know that Trip is, well, let's be honest. Trip is probably a better person than me as far as forgiveness. And I guess we'll just wait and see what happens with that. Okay, I did forget something. So they run the test or whatever, and while Trip is waiting for Ava to get done with her test in the room, he reaches for his back pocket. I think. He reaches for his pockets, and he realizes, oh, I left my phone at Charlie's place. You know, if you just would have listened to your dad, you wouldn't even be in this position that you're in. Which, of course, he goes back to the place to get his phone, and Charlie opens the door, and now they're looking at each other like they're mortal enemies. Kind of sucks, actually, now that I think about it, because I'm like, you find out that you have a half-brother, a half-sibling, and right off the gate, right out the gate, you're mortal enemies. This person done screwed you over and made you the town pariah, well, worse than town pariah, but, so there's nothing but malice and contempt from, well, day one, from both of them. So, that sucks. What else? Oh, yeah, at some point, I don't remember if I think I said this. Philip goes, well, he knocks on Brady's door, and Brady opens it up, and he just walks on through. And he pretty much kind of tells them that he's screwed, because of Xander. And again, I'm just like, Xander, what the hell? Honestly, to tell you the truth, I think that he's going to probably want to turn it around once Sarah finds out the whole details of why he's doing what he's doing. So, all in all, I think it was a decent episode. I think the only part that I just didn't like I said before, was the whole Claire and Bella scene, because it just ran on way too long, and part of me feels sorry for her, because this guy did lie to her, and what he did to her family member is just the worst. But her flip-flopping back and forth between maybe he didn't do it, maybe we should give him the benefit of the doubt, and yada yada yada. I mean, listen, I get it. And I know I'm probably gonna hit this up. I'm probably gonna hit this in the comment section. We don't have any proof that Charlie did any of this. The only thing that we have proof of is that Ava was tied up at her place. But that's it. The whole rape thing and the Charlie thing, that stuff didn't come in yet. So, to some extent, I guess I can understand where Claire is coming from. But I think the fact that she was just acting so melodramatic, I think that's the part that was just I think I was focused more on that than the fact that, the girl's heart is broken, and it sucks. The melodramatic part was just, okay, this is went on far too long. Anyway, with that being said, I'm gonna go. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Be safe. I will catch everyone in the next review.